Welcome to the Danielson framework for teaching and the evaluation process. Here we have the 4 domains of the framework for teaching and learning, along with each corresponding component of professional practice. For Domain 1, we have planning and preparation. Domain 2, the classroom environment. Domain 3, instruction. And Domain 4 is professional responsibilities. The components of Domain 1, planning and preparation, are as follows: demonstrating knowledge of content and pedagogy, demonstrating knowledge of students, setting instructional outcomes, demonstrating knowledge of resources, designing coherent instruction, and designing student assessments. For Domain 2, the classroom environment, the components are creating an environment of respect and rapport, establishing a culture for learning, managing classroom procedures, managing student behavior, and organizing physical space. For Domain 3, instruction, the components are communicating with students, using questioning and discussion techniques, engaging students in learning, using assessment and instruction, and demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness. And Domain 4, professional responsibilities, the components are reflecting on teaching, maintaining accurate records, communicating with families, participating in a professional community, growing and developing professionally, and demonstrating professionalism. Under the levels of performance, we have the critical attributes and we have the levels of performance. So the critical attributes for the levels of performance are as follows. For ineffective, the teacher conveys that the reasons for the work are external. The teacher conveys to at least some students that the work is too challenging for them. Teacher trivializes the learning goals and assignments. Students exhibit little or no pride in their work. For partially effective, the teacher's energy for the work is half-hearted or unsuccessful in enlisting student energy. The teacher conveys only modest expectations. The teacher trivializes some of the learning goals and assignments. Students comply with the teacher's expectations for learning, but don't indicate commitment on their own initiative for the work. Most students indicate that they're looking for an easy path. For effective, the teacher communicates the importance of the work and expectations that all students can be successful in it. Student work and conduct during a lesson indicate commitment to high quality. The teacher demonstrates a high regard for student abilities. The teacher emphasizes the role of hard work in student learning. Teacher expects students' effort and recognizes it. Students put forth good effort to complete work of high quality. For highly effective, the teacher communicates a genuine passion for the subject. Students indicate that they are not satisfied unless they have complete understanding. Student questions and comments indicate a desire to understand the content rather than, for example, simply learning a procedure for getting the correct answer. Students recognize the efforts of their classmates, and students take initiative in improving the quality of their work. Under the levels of performance. For ineffective, the classroom culture is characterized by a lack of the teacher or student commitment to their learning and little or no investment of student energy into the task at hand. Learning is not expected or valued. The classroom culture is characterized by little commitment to the learning by the teacher or student. Student engagement in the task at hand is inconsistent. The teacher appears to be only going through the process and the motions, and students indicate that they're interested in completion of task rather than quality. This was the partially effective. For effective, the classroom culture is a cognitively busy place where learning is valued by all. Students understand their role as a learner and consistently expend effort to learn by engaging in the task at hand. Instructional outcomes, activities, and assignments convey high expectations for most students. Classroom interaction support learning. And for highly effective, the classroom culture is characterized by a shared belief in the importance of the learning. Instructional outcomes, activities, and assignments convey high expectations for all students. Classroom interactions may extend learning. Students assume responsibility for high-quality work by initiating improvements, making revisions, adding detail, and/or helping peers. High expectations are internalized by students. In terms of the New Jersey Department of Education evaluation requirements, we have observation requirements summary. For non-tenured teachers, they are required a minimum of 3 evaluations that are at least 20 minutes each. And multiple observers are required for non-tenured. For tenured teachers, a minimum of 2 observations for at least 20 minutes each are required, and it is recommended to have multiple observers during the evaluation process. For those teachers who are in a corrective action plan or a CAP, they are required 1 more evaluation whether they are non-tenured or tenured, and multiple observers are required. Once again, non-tenured teacher who is supposed to have a minimum of 3 observations. If they're under a CAP, they would receive 4. If they are a tenured teacher who is supposed to receive a minimum of 2 observations, if they are under a corrective action plan, they would be receiving 3 observations for the year. Some additional notes on observations: announced versus unannounced evaluations. Within the minimum requirements, all teachers must have at least 1 unannounced and 1 announced observation with a pre-conference. Non-tenured teachers present for less than 40% total school days in an academic year. A minimum of 2 observations are required. Post-conferences between teachers and their supervisors are required following each observation. These conferences must all be face-to-face for non-tenured teachers, and at least 1 must be face-to-face for tenured teachers. On the bottom, you have the link for the NJDOE Guide to Staff Evaluation if you want further information. Next, we have evaluation component weights. The chart below lists the evaluation component weights for the 24-25 school year. All teachers will have the same weighing for each component, and all principals, assistant principals, and vice principals will have the same weighting for each component. Type of educator and evaluation component weights. For MSGP teachers, the summative score is composed of a teacher practice score of 70%, SGO or student growth objective for 25%, and MSGP or medium student growth percentile for 5%. For non-MSGP teachers, their summative is computed with a teacher practice of 85% and a student growth objective of 15%. For MSGP principals, assistant principals, and vice principals, the principal practice is 70% for their summative. Administrator goals are 10%. Student growth objective average is 10%, and the MSGP average would be 10%. And lastly, for non-MSGP principals, APs, and VPs, their summative score is composed of the following: principal practice 80%, administrator goals 10%, and SGO average is 10%. Lastly, we have the evaluation cycles. In order to ensure that all evaluations are conducted in a timely manner, we have cycles 1, 2, and 3 that denote when the evaluations will be completed by. So for cycle 1, non-tenured teachers are to be completed by November 22nd of 2024. For cycle 2, non-tenured teachers are to be completed by January 31st of 2025. And tenured teachers must have at least 1 completed evaluation by January 31st of 2025. Lastly, cycle 3, non-tenured teachers are to be completed by March 28th, 2025, and tenured teacher evaluations must be completed by May 16th of 2025. Thank you all for your attention.